Every single day you show up to the job site and you see a bulldozer sitting there, you see an excavator hanging out, you see someone skidding around in a skid steer, and you're probably wondering, where did these things come from? Why are they named what they're named? Why is Caterpillar named Caterpillar? Why is Husqvarna named Husqvarna and not Husqvarna? Why is John Deere green and not blue? So I've done some research on these companies, but this isn't gonna be your average history lesson. We're gonna be talking doomsday plots, presidents, and exploding dump trucks. And so today we've compiled these companies into 3 categories. We're gonna rifle through them, get her done.
Larry the Cable Guy.
I haven't said get her done in the last decade. First category on our list is simple. It's all the companies that got their name because they just completely made it up. All these companies in this category, there's no real rhyme or reason why they're named what they're named. It could be as simple as it just kind of sounded cool. So the first one on our list is Toro. Toro is a lawn and agricultural equipment company that started in 1914 in Bloomington, Minnesota. Huge win for the Midwest because us Midwesterners, we know lawns. We know how to keep a lawn looking tip-top shape. Partly because of Toro. Toro was initially created to make motors for the Bull Tractor Company. And what better way to associate with bulls than just to name your company the Spanish version of bulls, El Toro. This one I actually don't know if it's a fact or not, but they gotta be red because of the guys that are waving the red sheet in front of the bulls when they run after it, right? No fact on that, but I just imagine that's what happened. And although they just kind of made it up based off the other company, it does make a lot of sense because you used to pull your plow with a bull back in the day. I imagine that's how the Bull Tractor Company became about, and then just an extension of that. Toro, great name. Next on our list is International Harvester, the old IH. I'm an international harvester. 5 miles an hour. International Harvester was formed when McCormick and Deering actually merged together. And you'll see as this video progresses that there's a lot of tractor companies that are just named after combining 2 last names together. And so I think that they wanted to do something a little bit different. So when they were trying to figure out what they were going to name this new merged company, JP Morgan was investing in the company, and one of their representatives suggested International Harvester because with this new venture they wanted to actually make an international harvest equipment company. So what do you do in that scenario? You say, hey, what do you guys do? We make harvest equipment. Where do you want to harvest at? Internationally. International Harvester. Next. I'm assuming that's very similar to how it went down. Next on our list is Craftsman. And I know what you're thinking, Miles, that's a tool company, but they also do make tractors. And what's kind of interesting about Craftsman is Sears Roebuck. You know Sears. Still around, right? At the time, this mega retailer bought the name Craftsman from a company called Marion Craftsman because they wanted a product that represented making something for yourself. And what better name than Craftsman? Fair enough, they bought the name from them, they grew it, made it a very large brand that we see today. The kicker is they bought the name Craftsman for $500. Money was different back then, I get it. In 1927 when they bought it, $500 was a lot more money than today. But not really, because if you do the little math equation, it was still only sold for about $9,500 in today's money. $9,500 for Craftsman. The next on our list is Caterpillar, and everyone knows a Caterpillar when you see it. The iconic yellow that says cat on the side, but that wasn't always the name of the company. Caterpillar was initially called Holt Manufacturing, and they didn't change the name till one day when they were out in a field. A photographer said, that track type tractor of yours crawls along like a caterpillar, and Mr. Holt had to have been like, oh my God, we are no longer Holt Manufacturing, we're Caterpillar. And honestly, shortening it up, Cat sounds pretty cool too. Now, Caterpillar is one of the largest equipment companies in the world, up there with Komatsu and John Deere, which we're gonna get to later. But before that, I need to show you guys what Caterpillar did for their 100th year anniversary. This event to me is one of those things that you're a little bit kicking yourself that you missed and didn't know was going on. I think even up in the air, there's probably a bald eagle flying. Do you see that up there? gotta be a bald eagle. Next on our list is trusty old, good old Bobcat. Cool name, by the way. People aren't talking enough about Bobcats. Bobcat was founded in Gwinnett, North Dakota, and they're now based out of West Fargo, North Dakota, which shout out to Bobcat because I'm from Fargo, North Dakota, and hometown represent, and I'm completely unbiased when I say that everything that comes out of North Dakota is pretty great. And what's interesting about the Bobcat skid steer, because you think about Bobcat, they're a little bit smaller skid steers, and that's because they wanted them to be able to be operated in a pole barn, but also light enough to be operating on the second floor, which I wouldn't have thought about. Pretty smart. Bobcat knows what they're doing. And the name Bobcat kind of just came out of thin air. It wasn't that the guy who started it was smoking a stogie on his 80-acre ranch and saw a Bobcat run out and said, dang it, that's what I'm calling my skid steer company. It was just because they just said because their skid steers are tough, quick, and agile, much like a Bobcat. And that's where we get the name Bobcat from. Which is funny and ironic because most of the operators who operate a Bobcat, they are not, well, they're tough, but they're not very quick or agile. Next on our list is AGCO, and when you look at it, it is what it is. Agricultural company. But it wasn't always just agricultural company, AGCO. It actually started from some guy's name, which actually brings us into our next category of companies that were started off of people's names. It actually was meant to be Alice Gleaner Corporation, AGCO. AGCO was started in Duluth, Georgia in 1970. You thought I was going to say Duluth, Minnesota, and we were going to get another Midwest pick out of this thing, but sadly it was Duluth, Georgia, not Duluth, Minnesota. The two companies, Alice Chalmers and Gleaner, merged together, and the company Alice Gleaner Corporation was created. Actually, it worked out pretty good. They probably didn't even have to change up the logo or get new branding. Kind of sick. Next on our list is the iconic John Deere. As you can guess, John Deere was named after John Deere. Real original, Mr. Deere. John Deere was born in Vermont, and he was actually a blacksmith, which is cool. I just feel like if you're a blacksmith, it's just such a cool profession. Just making shit out of steel. Starting to get a little bit of a crush on John Deere. He then was looking for new work, and Mr. Deere moved to Illinois, which is sick. We got another one for the Midwest. Let's go. Back in the day, Midwest farmers had a hard time getting through the tough prairie soil with their cast iron plows. They would dull up, they'd wear down, and it wasn't great at getting through that tough soil. And John Deere, being a blacksmith, he used to make tools out of steel. So Mr. Deere said, guys, why don't we just make the plows out of hardened steel? Duh, way stronger. And so John Deere manufactured the first successful steel plow, and it was dubbed as the plow that broke the plains. God, that's poetic. And before we move on, you can't talk about John Deere without talking about John Deere Green. On a hot summer night. I was actually very curious how they settled on the John Deere Green, and the main reason is actually it just represents agricultural growth, which makes sense to me. So that's it. John Deere Green equals growing. The next company on our list that was named after a dude is Case IH, which, yes, it's a combination of Case and International Harvester, which we talked about already. In the last 10 or so years, they've merged together to make Case IH. And Case was originally named after Jerome I. Case, who started J.I. Case Company 1847 out of Racine, Wisconsin. So let's go! Shout out to another Midwest company! But if there's one thing you need to know about Mr. Jerome I. Case is this dude loves changing the name to his company. Listen to all the names Case has had over the years. J.I. Case Company, J.I. Case Plow Company, J.I. Case Plow Works, J.I. Case Threshing Machine Company, J.I. Case TM Co. Case Equipment Corporation, Case Corporation, Case LLC, merged with New Holland to form CNH, then demerged into two companies, Case CE Construction Equipment, and now Case IH. Woo! Wow.
His middle name is Increase.
No way. I now understand why he went with Jerome I. Case, because his middle name is Increase. Well, fun fact. We're learning about history, folks. We are becoming distinguished gentlemen and gentlewomen today. And then speaking of gentlemen, the next company that was named after a gentleman is Kubota. We're gonna hop across the pond for this one. We're gonna head west across the international date line and go to Japan. Kubota was started in 1890 by a guy named Gunshiro Kubota. Yes, we know Kubota as like heavy equipment, but they actually are one of these giant corporations that kind of does everything. So you can wake up to your beautiful Kubota air conditioning, go downstairs in your apartment to the Kubota vending machine, go back upstairs and get water out of a Kubota pipe, then go to your job and drive a Kubota. After our stop in Japan, we're gonna go back the other way and hop over the pond and then hop over the other pond the other way. We're going east, all the way to Great Britain to the company JCB. JCB was started by a guy named Joseph Cyril Bamford. What's kind of weird about JCB is there's not a lot of information about him as the guy. We know that he was a British businessman, but this guy really knew how to work a crowd. You should listen to his most famous quote. It's pretty riveting. You ready? Focus on what you do best. Be innovative and reinvest in product development and the latest manufacturing technologies. Wow, I am inspired. That is, wow, spoken like a true businessman. But the dude's company can make a mean scissor lift, so I gotta give him that. Next on our list is McCormick Tractors, which got its name from the McCormick family out of Chicago, Midwest. Let's go! Put another feather in our cap. The guy who started its name is Cyrus Hall McCormick. Cyrus claims that he himself invented the mechanical reaper. He was awarded the patent for it, so he does get to claim that he was the inventor for it. But another reaper manufacturer, John Henry Manny, produced a much better reaper shortly after Cyrus did. So McCormick took his ass to court. He said, let's tee it up. Let's let the lawyers duke it out. Wait till you meet the Grim Reaper, my lawyer. McCormick wanted $400,000 for the inconvenience, which in today's world is like $15 million. And Cyrus McCormick tried to hire the best lawyers that he could. He hired a former U.S. Attorney General, had the court case in his home state of Illinois, so this thing should have been a home run. So Manny said, okay, you're gonna try and stack the deck against me? I'll raise you, and I'll hire a lawyer that's actually from Illinois. And guess who that lawyer was? Abraham Lincoln. And sure as shit, Honest Abe took it all the way up to the US Supreme Court and won on an appeal. So Manny was actually able to keep making his mechanical reapers that were better than McCormick's, but kind of a wild story, but it gets a little wilder when you find out that Manny's company and McCormick's company, through the grapevine of getting bought and acquired and all sorts of stuff over time, McCormick gets bought by International Harvester, and Manny's company eventually gets bought by Case Corporation, which we now know is the same damn company. So all of that was for naught. They spat it in court. Abe Lincoln worked hard for it, and they just ended up becoming the same company at the end. Wow. We talked about the categories of companies that were made up, ones that were named after people, and now we're going to talk about companies that were named after cities. So the first company in this category is Husqvarna. Husqvarna is known now for making landscaping tools and lawnmowers and small engine type stuff. But a fun fact is they're actually one of the longest running companies in the world. Husqvarna was founded in 1689 in Husqvarna, Sweden. Husqvarna with a K. It's now a Q, it was a K. The first thing that Husqvarna made was muskets, believe it or not. But obviously, like every other company that started way back in the day, they've done everything. What's very interesting about Husqvarna is for a very long time, their main business was in firearms, and it wasn't until 1959 that they made their first ever chainsaw. And ever since then, they've transitioned out of firearms and done a lot more small engines and tools like that. Next on our list is Komatsu. Komatsu was founded in, you guessed it, Komatsu, Japan. We just keep jumping back and forth across the ponds. And the reason why it was started is the Takuchi mining industry needed a company to make their own mining tools, and Komatsu was invented. They said, we need a company to make mining tools, so we're just gonna do it ourselves. The old vertical integration Vertical synergy. And obviously they don't just make mining tools anymore, because now their yearly revenue is like $26 billion. And if you think of a piece of equipment, they make it. They make it all. Excavators, cranes, forklifts. So for all you forklift certified folks out there, you might be driving a Komatsu, or you might be driving a New Holland forklift. Which brings us to our next company, New Holland, out of New Holland, Pennsylvania. Now, New Holland is a weird one. It's got quite the story. It was started by a Mennonite man named Abram Zimmerman. And I know what you're thinking, a machine company was started by a Mennonite. And don't Mennonites not use machines and technology for the most part? Yeah. Well, it turns out Zimmerman just couldn't resist. In 1905, he was the first man to drive an automobile in New Holland, Pennsylvania, and he said, I gotta get me some more of that. I don't know if I want to be a Mennonite anymore. Imagine it's like when the first time you realize that you are attracted to women and you're like, wow, I don't care about monster trucks and dinosaurs any longer. Boobs rock. So to get around it, in a religious community, he started calling himself a Russellite, which is more like a Jehovah's Witness, to get around the technology loophole. But the kicker about Russellite is they believed the world was gonna end in 1914. And so after laboring and building New Holland into a great company, as 1914 creeped up closer, he decided to sell all of his worldly possessions, and including his entire stake in New Holland, because he thought the world was gonna end. Spoiler alert, the world did not end in 1914. After a few years of realizing he may have got swindled when the world did not end, he was able to work himself back into the company in a leadership role and still working with them, but he never got his ownership back. Kind of a sad little tale for Zimmerman, but I will have to say, first skid steer I ever drove was New Holland, so New Holland's got a special place in my heart. All right, well, that's all we got today, folks. Remember to subscribe, hit the like button, send this to a friend who might be a little bit of a history buff, and we'll see you in the next one.